Let me thank my colleagues in the Maryland federal delegation for being the tip of the spear here in Congress, pushing back against these illegal actions being taken by Donald Trump and Elon Musk. We've just seen a wave of law breaking, and thank you all for stepping up. And I want to thank all our witnesses here who have been on the first line of defense in the courts, helping protect the American people and helping protect federal workers. And I'm going to introduce each of you in a moment, but I want to thank you collectively for what you're doing to protect the American people from this onslaught of illegal actions and the people who provide important services to the American people, our federal employees. Look, what we're witnessing, in my view, is the most corrupt bargain in American history. Elon Musk contributed $280 million to elect Donald Trump, and Donald Trump has turned around and given the keys to the federal government to Elon Musk. And this has nothing to do with making the government more efficient. All of us agree that we can find ways to make the government more efficient in a targeted, surgical way. What this has been about is taking over key government agencies to rig them in a way that they do the bidding of people like Elon Musk, and as we've all said here in the Maryland delegation, try to hack away services that benefit all Americans to make room for tax cuts for the very rich. And I think the House may be considering a budget resolution later today on exactly that. In the Senate, we considered a different version this past week. So this is an opportunity for all of us in the Maryland delegation to hear from all of you as to what you're doing in the courts, what we can do to support your efforts. And I know that we've all reached out to our constituents and tried to provide any information to you that can be useful to you in these lawsuits in terms of standing, in terms of whistleblowers. But let me just thank all of you for doing that. And with that, here's how we'll proceed. We'll hear from each of you. I'll introduce each of you, and then we'll open it up to questions to our colleagues, and we will go from there. So we're very pleased to have with us Secretary Treasurer Gay Hansen of the International Federation of Professional and Technical Engineers. Thank you very much for being here and for what you're doing. To Everett Kelly, who's the president of the American Federation of Government Employees, AFGE. Thank you very much for being here. We also have with us Doreen Greenwald, who is the head of the National Treasury Employees Union, NTEU. Thank you for what you're doing. And Skye Perryman, who's the president and CEO of Democracy Forward. Let me just thank you for your foresight in creating Democracy Forward a number of years ago to prepare for what is now a clear and present danger to our democracy. And also to Rob Shriver, who is here, who's the Director of Civil Service Strong at Democracy Forward, and who many of us had the honor of working with when he was the head of the Office of Personnel Management, OPM. So we thank you for your past work and now working to defend all of you collectively, patriotic federal employees, because without these workers, we can't provide the important services to the American people. So I think we were going to start with you, President Kelly, and then we're going to go to Secretary Treasurer Gay, and then President. Okay? All right. Unless you all have a different setup.
It doesn't matter to
okay.
me. I'll defer to anyone that wants to go first. I'm good.
All right. Well, why don't we just
start?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
I've got lawsuits.
Okay. Well, first of all,
and we've been joined by Senator Alsobrooks and Congressman Fume, Congressman Ivey, Congressman Elfreth, and we're going to be joined by Johnny Oshesky. And at the outset, I just wanted to again thank Team Maryland here for all that they're doing as the tip of the spear. So.
Well, thank you, sir. Distinguished members from Maryland, my home state, thank you for convening this meeting with federal labor groups to discuss Trump's war against the civil service. Now, you don't need LG to tell you that the situation facing federal workers is bleak and getting worse. In just the past 10 days, Trump and his Doge have moved to fire tens of thousands of probationary employees, falsely claiming that their performance was poor. It didn't matter who they were, veterans, the injured and disabled, workers with years of outstanding service. They was tossed out, their lives upended, their families put in perils, and their only crime is that they believed in this country's promise. Trump has directed Doge and the Defense Secretary to propose deep cuts to DOD personnel, even as Trump and Congress prepare to massively increase DOD's overall budget for pet projects and that they favor, like the so-called Iron Dome. Meanwhile, they will kick to the curb the dedicated men and women who support our troops, build and maintain their weapons, care for sick and injured soldiers. Firing are happening not only at the huge agencies that make the news, but also at the smaller ones, like the Office of Personnel Management, which, among other things, process federal retirement. So not only could someone be unfairly fired, but they are entitled to retirement. Their pension applications may languish for months before a depleted OPM. And Trump is working to paralyze and behead every small agency like the NLRB, MSPB, FLRA, EEOC, and OSC that is supposed to stand up for workers' rights. Finally, in the greatest show of royal madness since George III, Elon Musk sent out an unhinged tweet on Saturday night, threatening every federal employee in the country with dismissals unless they justify their existence in 5 bullet points. Now, and NBC News tells us Musk's plan to evaluate those responses, extract from public service by a man waving a chainsaw, using an AI to determine if they stay or if they go. Now, adding insult to injury, Trump, Musk, and their followers are subjecting our members who stand up against the injustices to online virtuals like we've never seen before. It's frankly disgraceful, and it's un-American. Over the next few weeks, everything will be at stake. The rights to unionize, the integrity of collective bargaining agreements, cuts to the federal retirement system, FERS, and to our health care. The good news is that we know that those of you in this room have our back. And for that, we applaud you and we appreciate you. Senator Van Hollen, Senator Alsabrook, you proved that last week on the budget. And we know that Leader Hoyer and the rest of those that are House members here today, will take up the budget that's even worse than the Senate's budget, that cuts $50 billion minimum from federal employees' benefits. Let me offer a few thoughts on the path ahead. Number one, as you know, we have many pending lawsuits, and we had few successes in federal court. But Congress has made it desperately hard for federal employees to sue their employer. So please, don't count on the courts for relief. Courts may delay Trump, but they will not stop it. Number two, though we know you don't control any branch of the government, the only real hope for saving the civil service, and thereby saving the country, as my friend Congressman Hoyer teaches, that hope is an act of Congress. And you may have an opportunity to come March 14th. Our members worry about a shutdown, and I'm sure you do too, because I know who you are. But they have survived many past shutdowns, helped by the back pay provision that you have put in place, that you fought for in 2019. But I don't know that either our unions or the 2.3 million strong federal workforce can survive 4 years of the onslaught that they've seen in just the past 4 weeks. Something must change, and we're counting on you. We are depending on you. Our members are strong-willed patriots, and for that I am proud. They live by the time-honored word attributed to Constantine, the first Christian emperor of Rome, and later quoted by Franklin D. Roosevelt. I'd rather die standing up than live on my knees. You know, so come March 14th, please stand up with us. Stand up with your constituents. Stand up for the civil service. Stand up for this country. Don't give the majority only, one single vote, for any budget that funds Musk and any vote that funds Doge. On any budget that doesn't reinstate the thousands of patriotic and veterans who have been fired unjustly. Don't give one vote on any budget that allows Trump and Musk to continue to feed people and agencies into a wood chipper. That would be un-American too. Please don't do it. I ask you to please work with us. Please work with the American workforce to fight back. It's just not in our DNA. I know those around this room, around this table know it's not in their DNA. We will fight. We just ask that you fight with us. Under no circumstances do you give Trump and Doge what they're asking for on the backs of working America. So with that, I yield my time, and I thank you for the opportunity to be here today.
Thank you, President Kelly. We'll turn to Secretary Treasurer Henson.
Hey, thank you. I'm Gay Henson. I'm Secretary Treasurer of the International Federation of Professional and Technical Engineers. We represent workers all across the country. We've got quite a few in Maryland. I want to kind of go over that in a minute, if I could. Let me do that now. I'll just go right here and just tell you a few things about. One thing I wanted to make sure that I said was that the economic impact of federal workers in Maryland doesn't just stay in Maryland. Of course, you guys know that. And it benefits the whole country. Federal jobs don't just benefit the American public, but the whole economy. And we have 1,800 scientists, engineers, technical workers at NASA Goddard, which y'all all know. More than 80% of every dollar that Goddard gets and receives is passed through to private sector companies and academia and research institutions, which that's a lot. I mean, it helps the whole nation. In 2024, that included $819 million for small businesses and $237 million to universities. The work our members do at NASA also takes them to different states where they work with contractors and government partners like Texas, Indiana, Ohio, West Virginia, Arizona, Nebraska, Colorado, and the top recipients of the money that thank you guys for having us here today. Thank you for having us. It's a big deal to get to talk to you guys about what's going on. And you said it so well, but you've had a lot of practice on the news lately. I've been seeing it. We do have some lawsuits. Yeah, I know. Especially on a Saturday night, right? So lawsuits. Well, there are quite a few lawsuits, but there's one that's had a good outcome lately. It is a temporary restraining order was issued. It's a lawsuit with that we were part of, IPT, AFT, Machinist Union, and Protect Democracy. The judge decreed that DOGE personnel at OPM and Department of Education do not need to access any of the data that contains personally identifiable information, PII. Anything we can do to contain this massive illegal and illegitimate overreach at OPM is very important. But it's temporary. So it's a temporary thing. So we've got to do what time is of importance. We expect more attacks on our federal workforce, as you said, more efforts to dismantle the agencies and reductions in force. The entire, what I'm seeing every night on the news and all day long, I mean, you just wait for something else to happen every hour on the hour, it seems like, is to create fear, chaos, desperation for American workers so they'll leave. And American workers serve the American people. It's like the people that give them, like when I pay my taxes, I'm paying for the things that American workers are doing back for the country, for me and my family. I think that a lot of people, just regular folks at their dinner table, don't yet know how this is affecting them or how it will affect them or what's going to happen to them. In fact, they just see what they've been told are lazy, no good federal workers who don't care about nothing but getting a paycheck. And that's not where we are. I'm a 40-year federal employee. I work at the Tennessee Valley Authority out of the Sequoia nuclear plant. My job is, I spent years being a radiation protection health physicist for Tennessee Valley Authority. Like, I make sure in my job that all the work is planned and scheduled properly so that we have no nuclear accidents, we have no problems. That means that the workers are safe, it means that the general public's safe, it means that the community around is safe, that the plant equipment is safe. But you can't replace that tomorrow, just like that. I mean, it took years for me to get to the place where I could do that work and then do it well and with excellence, and we do, all of us do. Federal workers care about their mission. They're mission-driven. They're not money-driven, mission-driven. The people at NASA, they can make a lot more money somewhere else, but they care about the mission that they're part of. They care about giving back to America, to the cause that they've spent their whole life on. And I was at the NIH, is that where we were the other day? So those workers, they're scientists. Some of them, one girl was crying. She said, if I don't get to my project in the next 10 days, millions and millions of dollars go to waste. My whole project, my whole experiment is gone. And it was cancer research. Like, what? Is that what we do? So you're right when you said it's not about efficiency, it's about killing us all. People are devastated that the careers they built and the pride that they take in their work is being publicly disparaged. I talked about that in social media. And it's a bizarre and unprofessional emails that they get that look like fishing expeditions, you know, on your email. DOGE is basically taking these workers who care more than anything about the work they do to provide for the general public and put them in the garbage. We're telling our members to stay strong. So many of them have invested their careers, their expertise, and their knowledge that they've cultivated. They're in the federal government to serve. I've already kind of said that, but these people aren't easily replaced. They're EPA. They keep our water and air safe. They keep our food. They keep our food and our drugs safe. Cybersecurity. They do cybersecurity that makes sure that everything goes like it should and nobody's getting into our systems that run like our locks and dams across the nation. We represent law judges. We have nuclear workers. And none of them, this is about efficiency. The true goal is to run down the rest of the federal government. Efficiencies are gained only by working together. And that's what you guys are doing here today. I applaud you so much because the only way for us to figure out I'm okay with finding efficiencies in the federal government. I'm okay with finding waste and fraud and eliminating it. But it has to be a measured, well thought out approach to be truly effective. It's not efficiencies if it's not. So I got some predictions, like what's going to happen when we get our tax refunds, if we get one. Does everybody get one? If you get one, you want to get it if you're supposed to get it, right? Your Social Security checks, you're going to have longer TSA lines. But these are just a few things, flight delays, that kind of stuff. But I'm going to tell you something that really, really kills me. They fired 13 of our immigration judges. Yep. I thought that was what they were wanting to do, is get people a fair shake at the table before a judge, and if they have to go back, they go back. If not, they stay. But if you're firing judges who actually do the work, I mean, and it takes 8 months to get one of those people ready, you know, after they choose them, and they choose only the best, to onboard them and get all their clearances, it's 8 months. They just trashed them all. I mean, I just don't get it. Last Friday, the Immigration Court management, following the DOJ's interpretation, basically said that the ALJs are removed from their protections. I mean, that came out last week. All these pressures creates a new culture. I mean, like, okay, if you go to work every day and you know what your job is and you know what you're supposed to do, and that is to make the fairest decision possible under the law for these people, then all of a sudden you have all this pressure to do it as quickly as you possibly can with fewer people and not really hear it all out. I mean, it has to change how you feel about your job. The way this administration has treated federal employees is going to change everything, and you said that just a minute ago. When you take an axe to something, you clearly are not trying to save anything. If I have something I want to fix, I'm going to carefully take care of it. I'm going to take the pieces I don't want off. I'm going to add back in what I need, and the law is one thing, but the true remedy is that we got to have some help in Congress. I'd like to talk to the lawmakers who aren't in the room for just a minute. I mean, the Republican lawmakers, when you cut off these services to your constituents, when you stand by and justify it, and then you support it outright, you need to know you're going to hear from your constituents. And I've just been watching these town halls. Oh, they're eating their lunch. Every person in the room is kind of afraid to go to the front of the room because they know that there are people, and I can hear them yelling back and forth in their own town hall meetings. Their people are saying, enough, stop it. And of course, they're still trying to justify it. So there's more of this to come. I want to say one last thing, and just as a personal note, my father worked for the U.S. Postal Service. He's a World War II veteran. He's a fine man. I miss him. But he finished his time in World War II. He did some work for a while, and then he worked for about 20 years at the Postal Service. Now they're talking about getting rid of the Postal Service. I mean, like privatizing it. It's just too much. I just want to thank y'all for the time today, and probably said way too much, so thanks. Sorry Matt couldn't be here, but.
Please tell all your employees, all of the Maryland delegation stands 100% behind you.
I will.
By Congressman John Yershessin and Vice President.
Thank you.
Great.
So let me thank the Maryland delegation for inviting us, for really spotlighting this very important issue. I am Doreen Greenwald. I'm the president of NTEU. I represent over 150,000 federal employees and 37 federal agencies. And I'm here today because the federal government is under attack by the administration. The administration has strategically acted to weaken and eventually break the government. Congress has established federal agencies with unique missions to set policy and achieve objectives, to protect our country and serve its citizens. America's civil servants, our federal workforce, are hired to bring their knowledge, skills, and experience to deliver those missions. They take an oath to the Constitution and are committed to their work and serving the American people. Over 80% of the federal workforce works outside of the DC area. Federal employees make up less than 2% of the American workforce, and their compensation makes up about 4% of the federal budget. The ratio of federal workers to the nation's population has steadily decreased over the past 50 years. 1 out of every 3 federal employees are a veteran of the U.S. Armed Forces. And yet we are led to believe that the federal workforce is the problem. That is simply not true. Today, the federal workforce is being vilified without cause. The administration is actively working to destroy and dismantle the agencies put in place and funded by Congress. Some of those actions include the indiscriminate removal of thousands of successful probationary employees who the government already invested in, the blatant push to malign civil servants and intimidate them into leaving their career through the deferred resignation program, ongoing harassment from outside forces that further threatens their jobs and creates a dangerous distraction to those doing the important work of our nation. This has led to senior employees retiring and heading out the door. This amounts to a wealth of knowledge and experience leaving the government that is not easily replaced. These actions will have a chilling effect for decades. The U.S. government will no longer be the model employer and will lack the knowledge and expertise to deliver necessary services to the American public. This will leave the country more vulnerable and unable to protect our citizens, provide basic services we rely on, like clean air and water, and safe food, inspected food. Our nation's treasures will be left unprotected and unmanaged. The most vulnerable among us will lose services and will fall victims to fraud and abuse with no recourse. This is happening throughout our country. Every community will be impacted by these efforts. And let me be clear, this is only the beginning. We continue to see mass firings as they look to remove tens of thousands of more federal employees. This will impact every American, local economies, and the future of our country if the executive branch remains unchecked. This is not an effort to make government work more efficiently. This is an all-out assault on the very protections and services Americans depend on. As a former federal employee with over 35 years of service at the IRS, I've watched in this very short time the unparalleled disruption to the government. Chaos is no way to run a country. As the president of NTU, I assure you we are going to do everything in our power to hold the line, to protect federal employees so that they continue to do the work of the country they so love and are committed to. We filed a lawsuit to keep the civil service nonpartisan, so federal employees may continue to uphold their oath to the Constitution and not be subjected to a loyalty test to the president. The suit seeks to protect employees' rights should they be involuntarily moved to a new hiring category with fewer protections against political retribution, like Schedule F, or Schedule Policy Career as they are now calling it. We also filed lawsuits to stop the administration's efforts to dismantle the CFPB and keep it from protecting American consumers, the elderly, and veterans from predatory financial practices. And we have filed a lawsuit to urge the courts to stop the executive branch's efforts to undermine Congress and other branches of government in its efforts to break the government that has served this nation for nearly 250 years. We are committed to doing everything within our power to protect the federal workforce from these unnecessary attacks. We are also committed to working with Congress and the administration to help identify cost-saving measures and improve efficiencies across the government. After all, the people doing the work are the best resources to identify cost-saving measures. But the cuts to date, which were not based on efficiency, are just broad cuts with no understanding of how that would impact services. There is no plan to address the needs of the American people, the services they depend on, or the security and protection of our nation, with less people to deliver the important missions of federal agencies. We are doing everything we can, but there are limits to what we can do directly, since many of our legal options will have to go through administrative processes that are or soon will be controlled by this administration. We need your help today. We need your voices to be loud as you stand up for these employees and all Americans who rely on the services of the government that the government provides every day. We urge Congress to act, to put a check on the power of the executive branch and stand up for federal employees who are serving the American people, upholding the laws that Congress has developed to best serve the nation. I thank you for your support and I thank you for your advocacy. Thank you.
Thank you, President Greenwald. We've been joined by Congressman Steny Hoyer. Now we're going to hear from Sky Perryman, who, as I said, is President of Democracy Forward.
Well, thank you for having me and for being here. As the speakers before me mentioned, the American civil service is really a crown jewel of our democracy. These individuals swear an oath to the Constitution and to the American people, and not to any politician, and not to any political loyalty or ideology. And because of that, we can truly say that we have a government of, by, and for the people. And so the attacks that we are seeing, which are unprecedented, but are also part of a concerted effort, long-range planning that far-right extremists have done for some time. You see it in books like Project 2025. You see it in policy proposals that they have circulated. This is really about the undermining of a government of, by, and for the people, and an undermining of the ability of all of the American people to thrive. It's not just about undermining the individuals in the civil service, although that is also a core element of what is going on. And so at Democracy Forward, we really do see this moment as a 5-alarm fire, not just for the Americans who have given their lives to serve all of us, not just for the well-being of the American people, but also for our democracy and our system of government as a whole. There is nothing short of a government of, by, and for the people at stake right now in these fights. At Democracy Forward, we are in court every single day defending our democracy, defending the American people, and that includes our civil service. We are proud to be representing a number of unions and other groups in a range of lawsuits up and down the federal court system in order to protect a government that can work for all. That includes 2 suits challenging Schedule F, which is, of course, a Project 2025 proposal that the administration is seeking to accelerate. It includes a range of suits to stop the dismantling of agencies that this Congress has set up and created and required do work for the people that are unable to do that work because of attacks on the civil service. And it includes a range of lawsuits to protect the privacy of individual American workers as well as individual Americans across the country. In addition to that, we are committed to using the tools and the resources that our laws provide to protect the civil service. That involves making complaints before the Office of Special Counsel, which is the office that you go to if you're a probationary employee and have believed that there have been prohibited personnel practices. It also includes making claims before the Merit Service Protection Board, the MSPB, which is another place where federal employees can go to have their rights protected. So we will engage in the protection of the civil service in every forum, in every hall, and until our civil service is protected. Earlier this week, news broke that in response to a complaint that we filed on behalf of employees in multiple federal agencies across the government who had been abruptly terminated by the Trump administration because of their probationary status. And of course, when we say probationary status, we are not talking about anything anyone has done to be put on probation. We are talking about federal employees who are new to the government and new to public service, who are here to bring their innovation and to help the American people, but have been fired due to no reason other than that status, nothing having to do with their performance. We brought a complaint before the Office of Special Counsel, and the Special Counsel has concluded that he believes that there have been a range of personnel practices that have likely been violated. That conclusion, which is now before the Merit Systems Protection Board, confirms for us what we have long known, which is that the mass terminations of federal employees across our government is nothing more than a political stunt. It is harmful, and it undermines a government of, by, and for the people. We will continue to work in all of these forums in order to protect the civil service, and we of course urge Congress to do the same. I am so grateful that at 12:01 on Inauguration Day, Rob Shriver, who had led the Office of Personnel Management, walked across the street and started his position at Democracy Forward to enable us to double down on and to expand what we are doing and the resources that we can provide to civil servants. I'm so glad that Rob is here today, and I'll turn my time to him.
All right.
Sean, please take it away. After Rob goes, we'll be serious questions. Try to keep it short and focused, but I want to thank you for all the work you're doing.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you to all of you, the senators, members of Congress, for your steadfast support of federal workers and for including me here today. I'm really so honored to be on this panel with these amazing union leaders, and I'm particularly privileged to be working with Sky Perriman at Democracy Forward. My name is Rob Shriver. I lead Democracy Forward's Civil Service Strong program. We are seeing in real time an aggressive implementation of Project 2025. Democracy Forward prepared for this, and we were ready to go on day one. And now, as Sky said, we're fighting every day on behalf of the American people and the civil servants who work hard for them in their jobs. As was mentioned, prior to Inauguration Day, I was privileged to spend the entirety of the Biden-Harris administration at the Office of Personnel Management, with the last 8 months as the acting director. In that role, I got to meet a lot of federal employees. I talked to a lot of civil servants all around the country every day. And let me tell you what I know about civil servants. You leave your politics at home. You care deeply about your agency's mission. You want to help the American people any way that you can. And you understand that the elected leaders and their teams set the agenda and the priorities, and you do what you can to help them be successful. Unfortunately, the Trump administration doesn't get that. They think that federal workers are trying to thwart them and impede their priorities. So they cooked up this plan to torment and vilify federal employees, to use every tool at their disposal to drive them out of their jobs. And they've been carrying out that plan every day since January 20th. And I just think they have it so wrong. I don't think that the person in Baltimore processing Social Security benefits wakes up every morning and thinks, how can I thwart President Trump today? Or the air traffic control workers at BWI, the VA nurses in Camp Spring, the scientists at NASA Goddard, or the Job Corps Center in Laurel, Maryland. No. You work every day to serve the American people, to make sure that folks get their Social Security checks, to keep the skies safe, to advance scientific discovery, to care for our veterans and help our youth get jobs. That's what you do. And I was proud to be your champion every day at OPM. And so, my message to all of you is that we're here for you. Democracy Forward is here for you. The unions are here for you. All of the elected officials in this room are here for you. And you can go to civilservicestrong.org and find resources and assistance to help see your way through this storm. I want to thank each and every one of you for your commitment to public service and know that we're fighting for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you all. Now we're just going to go to a series of questions. And Ms. Perryman, I do want to begin with the case that you raised before the Office of Special Counsel, because as we've heard from all of you, and I want everybody listening to know that Elon Musk and Donald Trump are lying through their teeth in order to try to provide the justification for many of these firings, right? Because when it comes to federal employees, there are some due process rights.
That's right.
And it has to be a firing based on performance or misconduct. And this is why they sent out these letters to lots of federal employees saying that they were being fired because of poor performance, even as we've seen that so many of these federal employees just got glowing performance reports. So that was a lie. They tried to fire, of course, the person who's currently in the Office of Special Counsel, Hampton Bellinger, and the Supreme Court recently decided not to take up that appeal. So that's back. Those cases are now before the Office of Special Counsel. As you said, they've referred them to the Merit System Protection Board. Could you just let us know where it goes from here? My understanding is there are like 3 days for the Merit System Protection Board to respond, and they're representative employees, but if they're successful, does that mean this could apply to everybody?
Sure, so I'll talk a bit about that. We filed an initial complaint, framed as a class-wide complaint on behalf of 6 representative employees based on those individuals' records and the situations that they were in. The Office of Special Counsel not only found that there was likely violations of personnel practices that require investigation, but also recommended a stay of those terminations, meaning a reinstatement for the 45 days. The Merit Systems Service Protection Board, this is now before it. Tomorrow would be the day on which it needs to act or the stay goes into effect. We have no reason to believe the stay won't go into effect, but we're all waiting to see. In addition to that, we have now amended that complaint on behalf of multiple other employees who were at other agencies who raised very similar concerns, and that is before the Office of Special Counsel as well. And then our hope, of course, is that based on these recommendations, we would be able to work to expand the relief available to all similarly situated employees. We view it as a very positive step that the Office of Special Counsel has made the recommendation that it has made. It is not surprising to us because we think that we know that the terminations were so violative of all of so many of the prohibited personnel practices. But that's what we anticipate. And of course, you mentioned that there have been political attempts to undermine the Office of Special Counsel, to undermine the board itself, and we're pleased that the courts have so far halted those attempts so that this process can continue to play out.
Thank you. And Senator Brooks.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank the leaders who are here today for your courage. This is a really, really traumatic time for our country and for so many. I think that it was President Kelly who referred to our civil servants as patriots. And this is literally the case. And so these patriots who have been targeted in the way that they have, I just have a couple of questions about it. I just want to make one other statement before I do that. The irony of it is that we have individuals who have been attacked, who are attempting to silence them. And of course, the justification is that we have unqualified individuals, many of whom have worked for decades under various presidents. We have the most unqualified, I should say, nominees who are coming. Many of us, Senator Van Hollen and I have had the occasion to talk to a number of these nominees. And if you talk about unqualified, we can have that conversation. But the couple of questions that I have for you, I know the public would like to know more about this fork in the road. There are a number of big lies that have been happening now. One of the big lies is about the fork in the road offer that was made to a number of our civil servants, some of whom accepted the offer. And I'm understanding that they have been fired. A number of them have been fired even after accepting the fork in the road. So just like an update on what you have been hearing about the actions to address that particular action. And then the other one is that I know there's been a lot of concern and confusion regarding the message that went out by Elon Musk, the unelected co-president, who required some of our civil servants to justify their daily existence. And I know there was some confusion back and forth about whether that requirement was going to be was going to stand. So can you just give us an update
on the
this?
fork in the road offer? I'll say a few things. One, we believe that it was really an unlawful and improper action, and we took legal action swiftly in order to have the program paused, which a federal judge did do twice before it went into effect, in order to provide more time for this to sort of play out. We don't have a reason to believe that the administration is operating in good faith or is operating credibly with respect to the civil service, and so we're continuing to monitor what happens to the individuals that might have taken that. Rob Shriver has pointed out, and so I will use his statistics here, that we know, and you all know this from the people that you represent, but there are a number of people that leave the federal government every year, either because they are retiring or because of their own career options that have nothing to do with any of these ploys by this administration. And the fork in the road offer did not get the type of response that the White House thought it was going to get. Actually, fewer people took it than even people who normally leave the government of their own volition. And of course, that is because public service is just that. It's a public service, and it's not something that gets bought and sold on Donald Trump or Elon Musk's market. So I think that's where these are. We are monitoring and seeking to understand what has happened to the employees that have taken it, and again, had a range of concerns, including that Congress had not funded the fork in the road deal when they were offering it, as well as the one-sided and unfair nature of it. I mean, with respect to the intimidating social media and then email communication by Elon Musk over the weekend, you've seen a range of federal agencies have to pull it back, have to say that it would endanger our national security, it would endanger our, Americans across the country if people responded to this. And so, we've really seen it for what it was, which was an intimidation tactic. Rob may have some more reflections on that, but I think,
I'll just say real quick. So first of all, nothing wrong with a supervisor wanting to know what their employees did the last week. In fact, HR community would encourage supervisors to have that level of engagement. Big problem to have Elon Musk through OPM demand 2.2 million federal workers through 5 bullet points to provide some kind of summary that will undoubtedly be plugged into some AI system to draw some unsupported conclusions, and then threaten that if you don't respond, you can be fired. They're 2.2 million. There are literally women in hospitals giving birth when this email came out. People who had surgery that are recovering from surgery are with loved ones who are dying that are being told that you need to respond to this within 48 hours or you're going to be fired. It's just a stunt.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
there's an irony here that ought to be articulated. And that is, if you were going to design a system would do exactly the opposite of what DOGE is supposed to accomplish, you would design what they're doing. They have distracted every employee in America from focusing on what we want them to focus on. They have terrified literally millions of people who are working for the federal government and who now, if they can sleep, go to bed thinking they're going to be without a job the next day. What we want them to focus on, of course, is affecting efficiency in the government. So, but it's not surprising. And I want to quote, and I quote it often, Russell Vogt, who is the head of this 25 plan that Musk and Trump are implementing. He said this: "We want the bureaucrats to be traumatically affected. When they wake up in the morning, we want them to not want to go to work." What employer in the world would have as an objective not wanting their workers to go to work, if in fact they gave a damn about efficiency, or they gave a damn about the people who work for them? He went on to say, to work because they are increasingly imbued as bills. We want to put them in trauma. Musk has succeeded in putting them in trauma. We are dealing with some 160,000 plus employees in the state of Maryland, another 100,000 plus in Virginia, in this Washington metropolitan area. But the fact of the matter is, the majority of federal employees do not live in the Washington metropolitan area. They live outside, approximately 80%, 75 to 80% of them live outside the Washington metropolitan area. So I don't have a question because you're answering the questions, but I do want to thank you. And I know we're working round the clock. I could have 10 more people working in my office answering the questions of federal employees and trying to help them respond. Apparently, Musk has an unlimited number of engineers, scientists, administrative people working in his private enterprises. Now, are you aware of the fact that as they got this private information, that it was being put on Musk-owned servers? Are you aware of that? I've been told that. I don't know that to be the case. I'm not. Does anybody know whether
I think
that's
we
the
have a
case?
lot of concern about what Musk and Doge individuals, who they continue to not even be transparent about these positions, are doing with the data. We have, I think right now over 3 to 4 lawsuits pending on that, and one where we've already requested discovery in the discovery process against, in order to really be able to understand what's happening with the data. So I think, that is something the legal community is definitely monitoring and is deeply concerning. And, in one of the complaints we filed last week, we said not a single individual business owner on the planet, other than apparently Elon Musk, would be able to access the type of data that they're seeking to access. So there's a lot of litigation right now playing in the courts by many of us and others.
One short follow-up. If, in fact, the information that was taken off, to the extent it was, public computers with information that is protected by law, would that be a crime?
There are a range of data disclosure rules and regulations, as well as criminal provisions. And in a number of the agencies where we have a concern that DOGE has plans to go, there is a deep concern that that criminal provision, that criminal protections will be violated. So that's all the types of things that we're monitoring and looking at in litigation.
Thank you.
I'd also point out Elon Musk has deep financial interests engaged in many of these federal agencies. Congressman Bowman.
Thank you very much, Senator. I appreciate the opportunity, and I want to join with my colleagues in thanking all of you for being here. I think it's important to note that we are all on the same team. Let me get that up front. We got the same uniform and the same goals, so it's important that you understand that we really don't need marching orders. We started marching the day this started and are continuing to march. And the simple message is leave federal workers alone, period. And we have not moved from that message at all. This notion of Elon Musk ticks all of us off, but we can't get so obsessed by it that we miss the fact that we've got to organize our people in the street. They've got to know that there is real hope. Many of us just left a protest on the steps of the Capitol. I took this with me because I have officially renamed the Department of Government Efficiency the Department of Government Evil. It's evil what they are doing, and we've got to call that out, and we've got to find a way to give people hope who don't know what's going on. They don't know whether to blame their member of Congress or the president or Musk or their neighbor or anybody else. But it's clear that we've got to find a way to do that. Now, I want to thank Democracy Forward and particularly AFG for the legal challenges you've put forward and the temporary restraining orders that have been achieved. But this is, as I've said over and over again, a congressional fight, a constitutional fight, a legal fight, and it's a street fight to organize people. That's where we organize, in the street. That's the only thing that I know that works. And so when you see these large gatherings, it's important for all of us to weigh in and to be a part of it and to make sure that we are giving it support and defining, quite frankly, what's going on. Because so many people, if you're not working for the federal government, if you're not in this particular portion of the Mid-Atlantic, you may feel like it doesn't affect you, but it does. It does, and we know how many federal workers are out there. And this foolishness about creating efficiency by doing away with waste, fraud, and abuse. I'm the ranking member on the Federal Operations Subcommittee of the House. We've been fighting this for the last 3 or 4 years. We watched, like so many of you, how they came in and got rid of all the inspector generals, the people who had been giving us information on the record so that they wouldn't be around after this Trump administration got started. And they forgot to talk about the most serious waste, fraud, and abuse, which is in the Pentagon, which has failed 7 straight audits. So we try to communicate, all of us here who are part of this team, in such a way that it supports what you're doing on the ground. And we just need you to, whatever extent you can, to let other people know that we are on that same team, that we are fighting, particularly this delegation, a tiny state delegation, more united than most states in this nation on this issue. So I appreciate you being here. Our whole thing is resist, resist, resist. And if we ever stop doing that, it's all over. So I don't want to get carried away, but I'm ticked off, just like all of you.
Amen to that. Thank you, Congressman.
Thank you very much, and I want to thank the panel. I mean, so many of you are doing outstanding work with me, for my constituents. I appreciate what you're doing. Had a chance to be at some of the protests. With you, President Kelly, Secretary Treasurer down there. We had a chance to be out there talking to the workers who were there protesting and moving things forward. Ms. Perryman, I don't even think I've known you 30 days yet, but we're like, this is our 8th event together. But I'm going to say this again. I mean, I think the litigation effort that you put together is extraordinary. I mean, when this got started, I was concerned that we wouldn't be able to kind of keep pace with what they're doing. And if you look at what you all have put out, I think it's like 80 cases that you all have.
There are now over 60 cases against the administration between all the litigating groups. And of course, we've done over a dozen. We've done more than any group.
Yeah, and I think the number of injunctions that you've gotten, which was another one. I was not expecting you all to get so many injunctions put in place. I think there've been a couple that have been withdrawn, but
we just got another big one today, nationwide funding freeze.
It's outstanding work, so I want to thank you. Rob, thank you for what you've been doing. I think we just had our second town hall meeting, Sten and I did together. You were the star of that show for sure. And we're looking forward to having you back out on Saturday as well. Faraz Khan, we'll have you there as well. Hopefully after you'll be joining us too. But the key, I think, right now is to make sure, as Congressman Mfume was pointing out, make sure we all stick together and work together and coordinate and move forward together. And I think we've been doing a great job of that, and we need to continue it as we go. I think it's important to continue to mobilize people out there who are, frankly, worried about what's going on. They want to see more action. They want to see more pushback. Litigation is great, but it doesn't have the visibility of some of the things that you all have done with respect to those kinds of protests in front of these departments and agencies. I think we need to grow that, and those of us in Maryland have a lot of constituents who live very close by and are really itching to come down and get involved with that. I was at a church on Sunday, and the message was, just tell us, what, when, where, and how, and we'll be there to support it. So I think we need to really do a lot more of that going forward. And at that church, I ran into a woman who, PhD, is it a viral medicine or something like that? I went to law school instead of med school, so I don't know all of what she was talking about, but she was at NIH working on vaccines. And along the lines of what you were talking about, they were doing tests for new vaccines to make sure that the new vaccines work, and they're going to provide more health care and treatment for more people, shut down the research projects, shut down the clinical trials. And she's worried about it getting derailed. In fact, I think at this point it's too late. They'll have to start over again. And as I mentioned, I think when I was talking in front of the Department of Labor, my father was at the Department of Labor. He was forced out, this is during the Reagan era, under the same kind of stuff like this. But this is, way past what was happening. This is steroids for what was going on there. But we've been through this stuff. We know this stuff. We understand it personally, and we care deeply about it. And yes, this is definitely having a deep impact on our constituents, but the national impact is significant. The international impact one is big, too. USAID, we don't have so much about today, but, you've got people who are going to start starving to death based on what they're doing behind this. And on the Capitol steps, as you mentioned, we had 3 people come out and talk about the impacts of their families based on these cuts, based on the losses, not just from government employees, but the $880 billion they're talking about cutting out of Medicare and probably Obamacare as well. Grandmother out there talking about she can't take care of her kids, she can't get a medical treatment. That's going to be coming, and it's coming across the country. We've got to make sure we fight hard, and the time is coming now. March 14th is a big draw, a big line in the sand for what we're doing. And you don't have to ask the Democrats to not vote for that bill. I think Hakeem made that very clear, what's going to happen with that. Last point, though, it's the Republicans. The conversations that we're having among ourselves here today, we've got to make sure we share that with our Republican colleagues. We're down 3 in the House of Representatives. We flip 3 of those votes, we win. We've got the majority leader over there, the best we've ever had in the United States. He knows how to count votes. We can win, but we've got to make sure we push the mobilization piece out in the communities, out in the streets like you were talking about. That's how we can get this done. So we're going to keep going in the courts. I sure hope we can replicate the success you've had in the courts, here in Congress and out on the streets, but I think we're going to be able to get it done together. So thanks for the great work you're doing. Thanks for pulling this together. Let's keep up the great work.
And we're voting in an hour on the budget. It's a horrific budget.
Congresswoman Ellis.
Thank you very much, Senator, and thank you again to the panel. In the last couple of weeks, when people ask me how I am, I can only respond with, I represent 44,000 federal employees. And so the burden that this delegation carries, I know is the same burden that you carry, which is, feeling that the burden of representing so many people when it comes to their livelihoods, their life work, their dedication to their communities in this country. So just thank you for that. I want to drill down a little bit on the probation. There's so many cruel and unusual pieces of this plan, but the probationary piece of it, speaking for workers of my generation, Congressman Olszewski's generation, people who are kind of early mid-career, who are dedicating themselves to public service, who will be the next generation of leaders in civil service, being arbitrarily fired for no cause whatsoever. And I think, to your point, Ms. Perryman about educating the public about this. These folks were not given 2 weeks' notice. They were not given a severance. They were shut off from their work, from their livelihoods, with mortgages and children and parents to take care of. Can you speak a little bit more just to that probationary piece of it? I'm going to have a bill that I hope everybody will sponsor. If folks get rehired, that they don't have to start the clock over again for the probationary status, that they can continue that. But would love that. But can you, just as we're educating folks about the probationary piece of this, it's
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll just say, we do believe that the terminations are deeply unlawful for multiple reasons that were outlined in complaints that we filed, and the Office of Special Counsel has looked at that and has made a pretty strong recommendation, given the circumstances. So I will say, we are going to continue to work through that process as much as we can. We have not seen any legitimate basis for what the administration has done, and again, believe it violates a range of laws. I don't know, Rob, if you want to add to that.
I just want to talk a little bit about who these folks are, right? So, number one, these are career civil servants, not Biden appointees, right? Number two, who got hired in the last year or two? People that are expert in artificial intelligence, cybersecurity professionals, VA nurses, presidential management fellows, a leadership development program for kids fresh out of school who come in. This has been around for decades. They go and they rotate, they learn about government. Some of our greatest leaders have come through this PMF program, gone, just like that. That's who we're talking about. Those are the people swept up in this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Congressman Olszewski.
Thank you, Senator. Thanks for convening. Thanks to everyone for your time, and thanks for your work. It's as needed now as ever, and I know it's already been stated, but I think it's worth repeating. You have the full support of this delegation behind you in what you're doing. As Congresswoman Elfreth was saying, we feel it with you. We're getting the calls. We're hosting the town halls. Fortunately for us, people are saying thank you for standing with the men and women of the civil service and the organizations fighting to protect them versus what we're seeing in these other town halls. But I think the point was well made about ensuring that we are taking it to the street, as Congressman Fume reminds us. I come at this work like Senator Alsobrooks as someone who led local government. Our employees were our most valuable resource. They were the ones who helped us be better at delivering services. They're the ones who helped us find the efficiencies. I can't imagine either of us coming in and saying, either in word or in deed, how unvalued they are the way this administration is acting. So I would just say, I think we're going to keep pushing. We're going to hopefully keep getting the wins in courts. We are seeing, fortunately, a shift in public opinion. The polls are strongly turning against not just the administration, but who the public would like to see leading the next Congress already. And it's a direct result as people are learning of what's happening. They're learning these real stories, the real impact of how this is affecting families as services are taking longer. I think there is a delay because it takes time for that to sink in for people, but all the more reason, I think, for us to redouble our efforts alongside you. I have a technical question, if Rob, maybe you can answer this on the lawsuit side, and then just a sort of generic question for our folks leading on the employee space. Who are we naming in these? Is it the president? Is it Doge? Is it Elon Musk? Just sort of a technical question in terms of
It really depends on the nature of the lawsuit. Sometimes it's a government-wide challenge, which maybe would name the president. There are potential claims against Doge that would name Doge, that would name Elon Musk. Sometimes it's specific agencies and agency heads. So it really depends on the lawsuit, and there's all kinds of defendants in the administration right now.
okay, great.
Is Doge one of them?
Yeah, yes, there is a lawsuit against Doge.
And then just lastly to wrap, how much of this can our employees endure, right? I think that those who are hanging around are doing incredible work because of their commitment to their fellow Americans, honestly. But, when you're talking about leading with trauma versus leading with compassion, that trauma takes a toll. So I just wanted to get a sense of the workforce that is hanging on, how much more they can actually endure.
You know, I want to just say that the workforce that I represent, they're very patriotic, and they're going to continue to do their work. Now, so many times, because they are successful in doing their work, you know, nobody notices it, right? Their work is invisible, right? Nobody notices it when, you know, the warfighter got the tanks and it doesn't malfunction. Nobody notices it when they have the M16, the 2 or 3 grenade launchers, and they don't malfunction. Nobody notices these workers when their Social Security check shows up on time. Nobody notices when the veterans are getting the care that they need. You know, so the work is invisible, but it says that these employees are successful in doing their work. So much so that the public don't even notice the work that they do. But the minute that they're not there to do this work, that's when the public is going to recognize that they're needed. And that's the message that I want the media to convey, okay? Because these are very patriotic workers performing essential services to the American people, okay? That's what I want to say.
And I would add, last week when we started to see some of the probationary employees let go, terminated, they had no warning. Often their computers were shut off before they even got the information about what was happening to them. I was traveling at the time, and I had the opportunity to meet with 120 people that were walked out the door out of an IRS office in Denver. And they worked up to the minute they were asked to leave, because they cared about the calls that they were taking to answer questions during a filing season. That is the dedication of these people. They care about who they're leaving behind, the work that they've done. Our members work at the CFPB that were locked out and not allowed to do the great work, protecting consumers, delivering for vets and people who are the weakest among us, and delivering real dollars to them. Why would a government want to stop that kind of work? That's what's happening here. This has nothing to do with efficiency. It is about destroying the country that we know and love, and keep it from delivering services for the very people who rely on it.
Yeah, I agree with both of you guys. Listen, I don't want to be negative because you've told us not to be. I want to be positive. I want to move forward. But I have a question that I think is a very important question. If this keeps up, who will ever want to work for the federal government in the future? What happens to us, our nation as we know it, when no one wants to do it because they know they could be under this kind of nastiness and ugliness, and actually just, I agree with you, evil. So, I mean, it's a hard question to think about because we've known it like it's been for a long time. And, but who's going to want to do it? Who's going to be the one to build, you know, rockets or make sure we're cyber safe? And like I said earlier, lots of dams are okay. We don't have, you know, whole cities ran over by flood or whatever. And then the people that help during storms and crisis like that, disasters. I mean, I know in my area where I come from in Tennessee, folks, that something happens like that, and there's a whole group of people that just jump in because they know they can help the federal government help these people. But what if they're not there? So.
Thank you.
Let me say that's what Musk and Trump want, and that's why it's an obligation for all of us to continue to stand up for
Stand up and fight
employees
back.
and their patriotism, and for the important services they provide. And I just say, as Congressman Fumy did, and we've all said, we will fight them in the courts with your help. We will fight them in Congress, and we will fight them in every community across Maryland and the country, because this is about protecting our democracy, protecting the American people and the services that are provided, and protecting federal employees.
Let me make a comment. This obviously is political in the sense that a political administration is carrying this out. However, we ought to remember this. Government's been shut down 3 times over the last 20 years. The Republican Party were in charge each time. It is a strategy of theirs to use the shutting down of government. Again, one of the most inefficient things you can do.
Yeah.
You stop work for the American people. You stop delivery of services. This is the worst manifestation of that.
Yeah.
When you say, why would somebody want to work for the federal government? First of all, we got to speed up how we hire people. We have young people coming out, and it takes them too long to get in. However, this is going to lead them not to want to try to get in. I was in Munich at the Munich Security Conference. Chris, you were there. And I was in a restaurant, and a couple came up to me, and she said, Congressman Hoyer, our name is so-and-so. We're in your district. She said, this is my husband. He works for the NASA Goddard in Glen Ivy's district. This is my husband. He got out about 3 words and he started to cry, and then he started to sob. He said, I've been there for 15 years. I'll be able to retire pretty soon, but there will be nobody to replace me because they are firing all the new people who have come in. The seed corn is being destroyed as we have 40% of our federal employees who can retire within the next 5 years. It is a mindless process that is being pursued. And that's why why you're so energized, your people are so energized, we're so energized, as Kwesi and everybody has said here. We want to do everything in our power, and the courts are our first line of attack right now, because we don't have any power in the Congress. In the House, they don't have much power either. They're going to fail tonight, I think. They're a deeply divided and deeply dysfunctional party. And what we saw manifested of that deep division and dysfunction just the other day when Musk sends out a notice and 6 of the agencies that are headed up by Trump appointees say, we're not going to do that. So it's not just, it's right now they're dysfunctional. They can't agree with themselves. And the federal employees, all 2 million people, whether they're fired or not, they are paying a terrible, traumatic price for this game.
Thank you. Well, we're going to have to wrap in a moment, but I'm glad, Congressman Raskin, who's been such an important part of this fight, is with us. I don't know if we do have to wrap up in a minute, but I want to...
Sure.
Just...
Thanks, Chris. Well, I'm delighted that the unions are here with us, because the unions and the workers have stood so strong. And for me, the whole thing has been like a primer in teaching people about the Constitution, because what we have is a series of federal departments and agencies that were created by Congress using our lawmaking power being disassembled and dismantled by the executive branch. Sometimes people say to me, well, doesn't Musk have the authorization from Donald Trump? Donald Trump couldn't destroy the Consumer Financial Protections Bureau. Donald Trump couldn't destroy the Agency for International Development. Those were created by Congress, and the money that we've appropriated are also part of federal law. An Appropriations Act is a law of Congress, like a law saying you can't attack federal officers. And so to impound that money, to redirect that money, to think you've got a better idea is to defeat, again, the Constitution. And now we're getting, rampant violations of the Civil Service Act, the First Amendment. I'm glad there was a little victory yesterday in the Office of Special Counsel, which said that the mass firings of probationary employees is outside of the civil service law. The word probation is a little bit deceptive there, because it sounds like they did something wrong. The reason they're on probation is because they got promoted. Yeah. And so they got promoted for doing an excellent job, and then they say, oh, they're just on probation. Let's dismiss all of those people. So I'm glad that the OSC ruled in the right way yesterday, although the director of the Office of Special Counsel himself was fired and has a case before the Supreme Court. So even the people who are ruling on behalf of the workers themselves are under attack. So The good news, I told my kids on a phone call, is we get to go out and fight for everything we believe in and everything that our constitutional democracy stands for every single day now. So we're fortunate in that sense. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you all. Well, thank you. Thank you. For fighting with us on the employees. On behalf of the American people. I think what do you want to do? We're happy to answer a few questions if there are any.
We're just talking about thousands of your constituents being fired here. I know from the people I've interviewed, they've said, we just want our jobs back. And we saw in Virginia yesterday the governor talking about, the job, new website that they have to get different jobs. What is the realistic nature of these people re-entering the federal workforce as you talk about things that are funded by Congress?
Well, we are fighting every day, number one, to make sure that these people who've been wrongfully terminated get their jobs back, and to make sure that other people are not illegally fired going forward. They started, as you've heard, by picking on the so-called probationary employees. Probationary not because they've done anything wrong, but because they're either new to the job or new to the position. Many just got promoted.
That's right.
So that's why that first case, this Office of Special Counsel case, is so important. You just heard that they brought the case on behalf of 6 representative federal employees, but it's a class action lawsuit. So all of us united, we're fighting to prevent all of these job firings, to protect important federal employees and the work they do, but also to protect the American people, and they're providing essential services to people throughout the country. So again, I just want to thank our delegation on those.
Think how irrationally they started. They sent to 2 zillion plus people an opportunity to resign with 8 months' pay.
For not
Think
working.
of 2 million people who said, I resign. The country would have been in dire straits. So they started on an irrational basis, and they continued that. And therefore, I think the courts are ultimately going to find, hopefully sooner rather than later, that this was contrary to law, that these employees must all be reinstated with any back pay that they did not receive, and with a continuum of retirement, federal employee health benefits, and every other benefit that they had.
Yeah.
All right.
It's a good way to.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
It's a good way to. That again.
Thank you. Yes, indeed. A rally day keeps the fascists away. That's the way I say it.
Thank you. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.